Hi everyone, I'm Gigi from Printique.
I'm Johnny from Denver.
And this is Johnny Denver.
Johnny Denver. Okay, apparently I'm John Denver now, everyone. It's just, we're shifting into something else, that's fine.
Hi everyone, I'm Gigi. I'm here from Printique.
I'm Johnny, I'm here with myself, with I, and Gigi, and Printique.
And I'm here to talk to Johnny about his wonderful creative work, his photography, his art direction, his style, his skills, his everything, and a little bit about his print journey. So let's do it.
I'm so excited.
So we have your beautiful portrait photography with you here. I want to know a little bit about, so I was looking through this.
Yeah, please.
And you seem to have a bit of a style, would you say?
I guess that's the word on the street. So supposedly, I don't know. I think I'm really inspired by classicism, neoclassicism. I like the hybridization of sort of the old world and the new world. So it's an ode to influence, and at the same time, it's a celebration of the characters who are in front of my lens. And somewhere in between that point of contrast, the chiaroscuro, the light, the shadow, I feel like I have an opportunity to celebrate people through my medium and allow them to be seen while at the same time being seen myself.
You talk a little bit about this sort of painterly style that you have.
Yeah.
I feel like you kind of underpaint, almost like a fine artist with your work.
Yeah.
Would you say, how do you kind of get that exact lighting and derive that inspiration?
So I think I just sort of work into it. Like I would say I'm more of an intuitive lighting technician than I'm a technical one. So it's like I start with an anchor light. I might start by just trying to define sculptural features in someone, in the scene, in facial structure, in wardrobe, if it's more fashion oriented. And then from there, the lights are just built in one at a time. So we're modulating shadows. We might be color grading with shadows, adding warmth into shadow, bringing tones together, or even removing things. So I think I'm more fixated on shadows in my work than I am in light. I feel like as I shape shadow, light naturally falls into place. But it's just, I think every time it's a little bit different. Like this was just light painting. That was probably a 20-second exposure, with a flashlight. And so it's just constantly keeping myself on my toes. And I'm looking for something that melds with the character I'm photographing, if that makes sense.
It does. I love that you are more focused in a way on shadow than you are on light, because I feel like you're kind of looking for the negative space rather than the positive space. And again, that's another very painterly technique, which is super emulated in your work.
Thank you, that means a lot to me. Well, I also think there's something to be said about the metaphor for who we are and how we develop. It's that bit where I think as you start to mature and go down, call it the self-wellness journey, you realize that everything you're seeking is in shadow. It's in that space and all of the shadow work, and that's where our identity arises from. I think that's where our peace arises from. I think that's where the wellspring of creativity arises from. It's sort of in that murky abyss. It's in the unknown and in those places of fear and anxiety, and then really beautiful things come out of that space if we allow ourselves to venture into it open and wholehearted. But it's scary at first, and then it becomes more familiar, and then it becomes second nature, but it's a stepwise journey.
Do you feel like based on the model that you kind of have to reroute and kind of take a new direction? Like does their personality, their element, their energy kind of direct you in a way?
110%. You know what I mean? If you and me were planning, let's say we were gonna do a session with you here in Chinatown today, and you were feeling really great, and you're like, hey, I want this to be empowered, and it's about the brand and who I am as an artist and everything else, but let's say you had a rough breakup or a rough night or something happened and you showed up and your energy was different, I'm gonna say, hey, let's pivot on that. Let's pivot on the styling, let's pivot on the lighting, let's pivot, because I do not want to put you in a position where you do not feel comfortable, and I don't want to shift you energetically into a place where you are not present. So I think it's constantly this dance between me and the subject where it's like, who are they, where do they want to be, who do they want to be, and then we sort of just avail ourselves to the process and see where that takes us. So I'm definitely an agent of spontaneity and chaos more than anything else, and I never want to create a box around a person. So the last thing that I want to do, I think there's enough of those blinders that are put on people in society, they're put in boxes, they're put in definitions, we're defined by so many definitions, and so I just want a space where someone can be whoever and however they are, without constraint.
Is it hard to take your own portrait, would you say?
It started off hard. I think it's one of the craziest things to be it would be like you painting, yourself in your art form. Amazing painter. But it would be like that. So I think there's a deconstruction, right? Because we all have our own self-critiques about who we are as individuals, body dysmorphia to some extent, whatever that might be. And then we have the deconstruction of our art. So now you're in your art and you're seeing yourself as a human being, but then you're also seeing your art. And so you have the dual context and judgment of yourself as an artist and as a person and everything that comes along with that. So I think it's really, really hard, but it's also really beautiful and powerful. I think to embody yourself in your own art, it allows you to connect with yourself in a way that I haven't seen paralleled in anything else in my life. So I sort of dove into it as a last resort, especially during COVID when I didn't have creative teams, when I didn't have opportunity. And in the process of doing that self-portraiture, I really sort of connected to parts of myself that I didn't necessarily know, or that I had oppressed or suppressed over the course of time. And I think it's incredibly important for photographers to get in front of the camera. You know, especially those of us who are doing it professionally. We're asking people to come to us and to pay us money, right? So it's like, I want you to be vulnerable in front of me for money, but I'm not willing to be vulnerable as well. So there's empathy. So I really want to see people move from a place of compassion to legitimate empathy. So when you're like, hey, Johnny, I'm really uncomfortable in front of the camera, I'm like, I know, I am too. But we're going to get through this and you're in good hands. It's like Allstate, you know? One of those things.
Not a paid sponsor.
No, sorry. Allstate is not a sponsor.
Not a sponsor. I feel like this piece kind of resonates with your style so much, because when you get in that mode of self-portraiture, do you feel like you learn things about yourself? Like you're kind of uncovering that shadow work, and then you can reflect, or almost like a kaleidoscope of like seeing yourself from those different angles.
Absolutely, and I almost liken it to acting. You know, so it's like you take on a character, and I think like you find part of yourself in that character. So it's like part of you is revealed in the process of discovering something else. And I think like just being is a constant state of process, discovery and renewal. So I mean, even in this, it's like some of the stuff is very overt and other things aren't. But I mean, even the fact that the chair falling is a big element for me, because I feel like my whole life I've been falling. You know, and there's this bit where it's like, am I falling? Am I flying? Like, what is this? Like, am I coming together? Am I falling apart? So I think there's always this aspect of like dynamism where I don't feel good when I'm stable, as strange as that sounds. It doesn't feel natural. So I'm always in some sort of state of flux. So you'll normally see me falling off boxes, or chairs being moved aside, or things in the background being askew. And I think that just speaks to the fact that I constantly feel like I'm molting. It's this perpetual process of reinvention, for better and for worse, and it's exhausting, but it's also really beautiful and powerful. So, you know, it's sort of the duality of all things. All of that coexists at once.
So speaking of that, I feel like a lot of people in their photography career feel that same way, where they're like, I don't know if I'm falling together, falling apart, if I'm doing the right thing, if I'm not doing the right thing. Can you speak a little bit to your success of kind of how you felt with that level of like struggle, with one moment you wake up and you're like, I'm doing it, I'm in the thing, I have it, and then the next day maybe you're feeling that falling, and how you kind of deal with that and represent that in your work?
So for me, I think it goes back to this concept of radical acceptance. Like I had a therapist tell me about that a long time ago, but it's this idea that like you are right as you are, and you're entirely, wholeheartedly. So I used to look at things and go, oh, I'm struggling a lot, therefore I must not be doing enough, I must not be doing well, other people are doing better. Once I saw all of that as just part of the process, I could accept it in whole. So I'm like, those days when I'm struggling and I'm like, I'm gonna sell all my gear and become an accountant, you know, like those are just as good as the days.
Too?
Hey, absolutely, we all do. If you're an artist and you don't have the moments where you question everything, you might not be pushing hard enough. Yeah. So I think before those felt like they were these big impediments or obstacles, and now I see them as waypoints. So when I start feeling those things, I'm like, all right, that means that I'm moving forward, right? And it's this cyclical aspect, because like we're certain and then we're uncertain, and we move back and forth between these different energetic states. So I think it's just seeing it all as part of the whole. And it's like, you know, you're like, yes, I'm going to deal with pain. Yes, I'm going to struggle. Yes, I'm going to wonder. And that is not a dysfunction. That is a function of moving down this path as an artist.
Ooh, it's heavy. That's
all things. We don't do chit chat here.
We go deep, and we go 10 miles deep if we do go deep. So as Printique and Adorama's first ambassador, which congratulations, that's incredible. So happy to be sitting in front of you right now with our first ambassador. We've been working towards this for so long, and I think who better to do it than you?
That means a lot.
Yeah. So I want to ask you, as the first ambassador with Adorama and Printique, how do you inspire photographers, do you think, with your work?
I don't know, I guess that's probably best to ask them, you know? It's like, I don't necessarily like to presume in that way, but I would hope that I inspire them to dig deeper into their own work. I would hope that I inspire them to be more playful, to be more creative, to be more exploratory. I would hope that I inspire them to just fail more, to try more, to get out of whatever their comfort zone is. I think one of the biggest things that we could do is become very comfortable with uncomfortability and familiar with the unfamiliar. I think as artists and creatives, everything that we want and need, everything that we're aspiring and working toward, it's all found in the unknown. It's just past that point of anxiety, of the fear and everything else. And once we learn to embrace that and make it part of our process, I think really beautiful things unfold for us. So I would hope that it just causes people to want to make art and to celebrate themselves and to celebrate other people and to take a very humanistic approach to things. I mean, obviously I have an engineering background. I love gear. I'm a highly technical person, but I'm hyper fixated on people, on the human experience, on the human essence, on individuality. And I think if you lead from that place in your work, if you're photographing people, that naturally separates you. And then you have this sense of fulfillment knowing that you're doing right by people, and when you're doing right by people, you're doing right by the world. I mean, you change the way someone views themselves, and they carry that forward, and like ripples in a pond, it just moves out.
Yeah, that sort of energy and that light that you bring to your work, and you can see it here, you can see it when you talk to anyone.
Yeah.
I think the fact that you prioritize kindness and making sure that people feel comfortable over anything in photography, it'll speak to our photography community and remind them that they are enough.
Yeah, exactly.
They're all trying, they're all doing it, and we're all here together, and you're a part of that journey with them.
Exactly.
So again, we're so happy to have you.
Oh, and it's 100% mutual.
We're here with your beautiful handcrafted album.
Yes.
And I wanted to talk a little bit about the journey from photography to print with you.
Okay.
So when you were putting this book together, I want to know a little bit about how this came to be, what materials you feel like fit the photography work. So when you take a photo or you take a shot, do you see it in a certain print solution or a print moment, or do you feel like it kind of, you have to go through the process?
I think I sort of have to go through the process. If there's one thing that I want to do when I'm behind the camera, it's try and be as present as possible. So, it's like that too many minds analogy. So I don't want to have too many minds when I'm behind the camera. I want to be focused on the person who I am with, to the exclusion of everything else that exists in the world. And I feel like in that way, like that gives them space to be present as well. So printing is such a big part of my process, but I would say relative to me being in that moment, it's an afterthought. And it's something that develops. So it's going to be relative to texture. It's going to be relative to tone. Is it high key? Is it low key? What's the skin tone of the person I'm working with? If you're using metal versus you're using canvas, how is that going to be interpreted differently? The medium itself, the substrate itself, and those types of things. So it really becomes what's the narrative we're trying to tell? And then how can we take that from lighting, from styling, from celebration of individuality, and then bring that into a place of totality based on how we bring it into print, along the lines of that idea that the photo is not done until it is printed. And for me, I've always struggled with the idea of feeling like an artist. And so if you're constantly mired in zeros and ones, you have your sensors and you have eye autofocus and you have your camera and you have AI retouching and you have all of these different things at play. Like when I hold a print in my hand, it makes me feel like a legitimate artist. So whenever I'm feeling dissonant from my art form, I know that I can get a print and sit there with it in quiet and feel just simply the tactility of it, the tangible elements of it. It's not a postage stamp on a screen. It's something that's literally in my hands, that I can treasure or burn, whatever I want to do with it. Don't burn your prints. It's just, it's a really, really beautiful thing to see something physically manifest in the world that you poured your heart and soul into.
I agree. I honestly, that was so well said.
Thank you.
I can't sing your praises enough about how you...
My ego is swelling.
As it should. I love how you said that it doesn't feel real until it's in print.
Yeah.
So with that in mind, out of one of these pictures, can we go through and you can tell me about the moment of this photography piece, that day, that journey, and maybe one of your favorite memories from this photo?
Yeah, absolutely. There's one in here that's kind of silly. So I think we'll go silly versus serious, and we can also go serious too. But let's see here. We'll start silly. Okay, so this is Samantha Joseph, and she is absolutely stunning. She goes by International Queen on Instagram. But this was taken at one of my workshops, one of the first workshops I did, my Artistic Alchemy workshop. And I asked Sam to model for obviously a plethora of reasons, because she's gorgeous and I love her energy and poise. But she was trying to find her way to my studio, and I had my phone off because I was teaching, and she was not happy about that. So I think she had called like 4 or 5 times, and when she finally got there, she burst through the front door and she was like, "You didn't answer the phone. I almost went home. I don't even want to be here anymore." And literally I have a class of people behind me who are just like, And so I'm like, all right, I need to like mediate the energetics here a little. So I walked over to her and I had a side note. I'm like, "Hey, I appreciate you being here. If you want to go, you can go. Like, I'll still take care of you no matter what. I'm sorry about that. Heartfelt mistake on my point. I just didn't realize you were calling." But her energy had shifted and she was just in a place where she was upset. And I'm like, rather than trying to vert her into a different energetic place, I'm like, let's portray her as the austere queen. The queen who's like, "Don't get near me, don't touch me, don't even look at me. I'm not gonna meet your gaze." So I happen to have these couture styling pieces from Eliza Vlasova, a designer friend of mine. Painted Lotus Designs had lent me this headpiece for this. So we went into the back and I started to piece together this look that looked a little bit macabre, a little bit goth, a little bit like over the top, grandiose, but the opulence felt like a division between approachability, right? And so I love that. And then we used a single light with this. We feathered it off strongly, so only part of her face is out of shadow. So she's almost hiding into the shadow. She's very inward with this. And overall, it just played so well. So I think that's really the point, is that so often we have to be willing to pivot and just roll with the punches. So she came in, she had a certain persona. Instead of trying to mask that persona, we embraced it. And we said, let's flow with this energy. And that's, to me, why this feels so authentic. If she would have been sitting there being like, all bubbly and smiley, this would have made no sense. But the fact that, you know, her face, her skin, the color of the light, the styling, the background, the golds, the silvers, all of it plays together so well to tell this story. And I think that was a perfect one, and it was beautifully illustrated to the people who were in my class, because they were off-put by it at first, and then to see me work through that in real time and say like, oh, we don't have to avoid these things, we don't have to change, we can simply say, okay, this is the palette I have in front of me, what do I now do with this palette that's going to be cogent, that's going to be impactful, that's still going to be celebrating? I'm like, hey, you're kind of being a B word right now, but we're gonna celebrate that, and she loved that. So even then, by the end of it, she was smiling and laughing, so we had the great catharsis of her shaking off her frustration with me, and we were able to just connect over creating this really beautiful piece of art.
And that's an incredible learning moment for your students as well,
Yeah,
because
absolutely.
they looked at that as, oh, an oh moment,
Absolutely.
this is uncomfortable, to you saying, these are my tools, here's my toolkit for
Yeah.
right now, what are we gonna build? Instead of basing the whole thing around what you thought you'd envision in your head, you based it around the person, their experience.
Well, I think one of the biggest things for me is there's a tendency in education to have things so prim, proper, and polished that you don't get process, right? So it's like you go in and there's pretty people wearing pretty clothes on pretty sets with pretty lighting, and they're like, take a photo. And you're like, well, that's great. I have something to add to my book that's not really mine, but I didn't learn anything. So I like to work from the ground up with people to say like, hey, it's not Fantasia. You know, I don't walk into the studio and snap and everything's there. Like I fail, I build, I try, I say, I like this, I don't like this, I keep, I take. And so we move into things stepwise, and I think we need to have more transparency. You know, especially with educators, like if you're out there, you need to be vulnerable. You need to show your mistakes. You need to show your failures and all of that stuff, because that is as much you as the successes. And it really empowers photographers who are at an earlier place in their journey to say like, oh, I can make mistakes too. I can fail, I can flounder too. Not only is that not a bad thing, it's a good thing, because if we don't embrace failure, we can't grow. It's an impossibility, so.
Well, thank you so much, Jonny, for being with us here today in Chinatown, in New York, coming to New York and being with us. So
It's been a joy, truly.
I appreciate you being here. I appreciate you talking about your work and your print journey, and we hope to work with you quite a bit in the future.
Yeah, I can't wait. And like if you're watching this out there, you know, definitely print your work, create more, do more, love on yourself a little bit, love on others, and bring your work to life through prints. And it doesn't matter how you do it, when you do it, where you do it, just do it. And yeah, just have fun with it, you know? Smoke and mirrors, my bit is memento mori, so at some point this is all gonna end, so let's live to the fullest.
And you can find him at Jonny Creative, I believe, on
Yep, you
all
got
channels.
it. Yep, that's
and
it.
we got it.
No H.
Art is life and life is art.
Boom.
Boom.
Well said.
There we go. All right.
Later.
Bye. That was cute.
Yeah.